Hello, welcome once again to the J Lowe Artist YouTube channel. Thanks for joining me on this artistic journey. And today we'll be working with colored pencils. So you'll need your number 2 or HB pencil, kneaded eraser, and some good quality colored pencils. Okay, so number 1 composition, simple shapes. Remember simple shapes. So I'm going to start out with kind of a circle for his head, maybe a little triangle for his nose, triangles for his ears. So just think simple shapes. Where are you going to put it? About not quite in the middle, maybe off to the side a little bit. I want to say that's his head right there. And then his body kind of is this kind of shape here. You can even put in the basket if you wanted to put in the basket. And a little paw hanging down off of there, somewhere in there. You can even say, well, off here is his nose. Maybe he's got this little kind of triangular, boxy, triangular shape for his nose. His ear starts almost in the middle of that circle that we first drew. Almost in the middle, not quite. Off to the side a little bit. There's his ear. And just about the middle of that circle off to this edge here is his eye. Maybe throw in a little circle for his eye there. Just a little dot to say that's kind of where it goes-ish. Nose. Jowls. About straight down from his nose is about where his paw goes. So there's a little paw. This is probably a little bit, it made him a little fat. Drop that down a little bit. That elbow is almost down to his back. Not quite, almost. I'm going to throw in the basket just because he's in it. But the basket, we're not going to do a whole lot with it. We're going to put in some texture and then just leave it out. And you're not stuck with this first drawing. Whatever you drew to begin with is merely a reference. Don't feel like you're stuck to it. You can alter it. You can change it. So once you've got your map in, once you've got that preliminary drawing in, and you think, okay, that's going to work, then we start picking out colors. And there's a couple of colors that you really are going to want in there. Black is probably one of them, because there's some, even though black technically isn't a color, it's all the colors mixed together. But in the eye, in the nose, and some of the spots, not all the spots, but you're going to need a little bit of black, so you want to pull that black out. And then I see a lot of purple in there and magenta, so I definitely want purple or violet. And magenta is that kind of a purpley red color. That's your neutral. That's one of your neutrals. Remember, the other neutral is yellow-green. But usually white things, you see a lot of cool colors in those. So a little bit of that. Might even see a little bit of sky blue. And maybe a tiny bit of kind of an orange or a yellow-orange. There's a yellow-orange in there. That'll warm up some of those other tones. I see a lot of this like in his nose. Even down his chest, I see a little bit of kind of pinky. And if you mix that with your magenta and your orange, it's going to go more on the red side. It's going to turn more warm. But if you mix your magenta with your violet, it's going to turn more cool. So we're going to have a little bit of that warm, cool taking place there. You see any other colors in there that you would like to use? I think for now that's probably pretty good. I don't know. But you want to kind of limit yourself on your colors. So I'm going to just slide those colors away There might be a little bit of green in there, but I think we're going to ignore that green background for now. And I'm going to start out with some violet or purple. Think of this like ink. So there's lots of spots, like right up in his head right here. All this can be lost for the most part. So here's some of that purple. I'm just going to start, and I usually draw left to right. You can barely see this little eyebrow that's over there on this side. Then as it comes down, I'm going to leave out the bridge of the nose. If you think I need a little bit, put a little bit just in there next to the nose. And then the shape of the nose. Put in the shape of the nose. And you're not drawing lines around it and then shading it in. Just put in the shape of the values you see, the shape of those darks. Again, if you can't see it, don't draw it. You can always come back in and add it later on. Here's the spots on his little face. Some of them are fairly dark, but some of them aren't. When you first draw in with color, you think, oh, that's probably dark enough. But I guarantee you it's not. We'll add some later on. Again, don't draw lines around things. The little eye is kind of hard to see. There's a little dark edge in there where his eyelid is. There's a little rounded eye. There is a little shine in his rounded eye, not much of one. But I'm going to just shade it all dark, and then when I come back in, I can darken in some more of this. Remember, we're trying to get rid of our graphite, so we've got to get enough information as quickly as we can so that we can get rid of that graphite. The other thing is if your lights and darks aren't quite in the right place, this purple is fairly easy to cover. Right now it doesn't feel that way, but it really is. Wait until we get going. And your edges aren't smooth. Don't let them, leave them sketchy. He's got a little spot right on the top of his head right there, and that's going to define his head. Everything else, in fact, if I got rid of all that graphite, which this is my favorite thing to do, I'm kind of left with a ghost image. But all that graphite, you can still see where his head is. You can still see where everything is. Even that top of his head, it's almost like you can see that, but it's not there. I've erased it completely, even his nose. And as we use color, as we draw in, it'll come through. Rest of his body, very little to do in there. So just try to do as much as you can of what you see, leaving out areas if you need to. I'm just using the spots, his spots, to define him. Don't worry about edges. Unless there's a shadow, like right here on his arm. There's a tiny little shadow right there. You can use that. The rest of it is very light. Just leave it out. Little shadow on the basket from his little wrist there, his little paw, his ankle. There's his paw. And again, just leave it out. Let it go. Let it go. I am going to put in some of this basket, though, because I do want to get rid of it. So I'm just going to put in a little bit of that shadow that's around there. And these spots are not perfectly in the right place. That's okay, because nobody cares. Every dog, spots are different. This is part of the basket in the background. So if I just use the little basket, that'll define his back. And I could put some little lines in here too that help define the basket. That will also help define his little hand that's right there. So even though I didn't draw a line around it, you can see where it is. Once you've got enough information in there, get rid of that graphite, because it's just going to mess with your colors. Now we're just kind of left with that little ghost image. I mean, you can kind of see him, you know where he is. So I'm going to use this this sky blue. It's kind of a light blue. You can use teal, you can use the magenta, you can use lavender or purple, violet. It's up to you, but I'm just going to use this light blue. Just seems to work for me. And I'm just going to put in some of those light values, those light, I guess some people would call them grays. But I don't see them as gray. They're kind of light blue. Any of the little shadowy gray areas that you think. You can even do this through most of his ear. A little bit up in the eye, around his eye. And as I do, he's starting to come through. And the more we add, the more you'll see him. This part of his shoulder is really white right there, so I'm just going to leave that out still. If I need to, I can come back into it later on. His whole chest is in shadow, so I'm just going to very lightly with this light blue scribble that in. Any place that you think you need some of that. Again, hopefully he's starting to come through for you, and you're like, oh yeah, I see him more. Maybe I'm going to do some magenta now in there, just a little bit. And I'm going to carry this on up. That magenta in the lighter area is going to look a little more warm. But over the top of that blue that we just put in there, it's going to give it kind of a purpley cast. Does it bother you that you can't see the top of his head? Are you thinking to yourself, I need that crown, I need to see a little bit of that? If it does, take a little bit of that magenta, just here and there, and just add a little edge right there, maybe a little right in there. And the top of his head will come through. Don't need much. Now, what's going to make this better? When you look at it and you think, okay, it's looking okay, I got my proportions looking pretty good, but what's going to make this better? What's going to really make it stand out and pop? Contrast. So, in order to get that contrast, we're going to need to add some black to this. Just here and there. Not a lot, just a little bit here and there. So as soon as I'm done with my magenta, we'll make this pop. I'm just going to scribble this magenta in there as quick as I can. Like I say, over the purple, it's going to turn a little more purple. Over the white, it's going to feel a little more red. So here goes. And you can put this wherever you feel like you need it. Doesn't have to be everywhere. So sometimes you just need a tiny bit in a section, like right there. You just need a little bit. Just enough to make that kind of stand out. Any place that it's really dark, it's got to be really dark. Wherever you need it really dark, add some pressure to it. We're going to go back over that black anyway, so it's just there as contrast. It also helps us to smooth out some of our values, our darkest areas. And it also helps us to improve some of those spots that we said, oh, wasn't quite right. Like I say, you don't need it everywhere, just here and there. I don't see a whole lot more darks than that. That's about all I can see. Now, just to warm things up a little bit, I'm going to add a little bit of this yellow orange. Now, the yellow orange with the blue is going to turn kind of brown. And if you wanted to, you could add a little bit of this into the eye, because his eyes are quite brown, and around his eye. But I can see some of this over in his jowls right there, where you can just warm it right up just a little bit. So all that blue, that magenta, that purple, this orange is just going to add it and turn kind of brown or gray. It tones it down, but when you look at it, you think, okay, it's still warm. It's still kind of orangey. Any place that you feel is kind of warm, orangey warm, and sometimes it's more of a, I feel like it should put some in there. Kind of let your artistic eye guide you, not your thinking mind. If your thinking mind isn't very artistic. Again, if it goes over the brown or over the blue, it's going to turn kind of brown. It'll still be kind of warm, and you kind of figure out where you want to put it, where you feel like it should go. And I'm going to put quite a bit of this in the basket. So I'm going to go back into it with the violet, and I'm really going to hit the violet hard over the darkest areas, because those are going to be now. I'm going to blend that black in there, but I also want it to come out and get kind of gray. So any place is really dark, that violet's going to go back over it. It's going to go back over that orange. It's going to turn kind of brown, gray brown. I probably put a little magenta over the top of that too to make it a little on the redder side. Just think it like frosting, you know, just put color in there like crazy. Just have fun with it. Enjoy the journey. Doesn't happen often. Also, as you layer in that little bit of last color to it, don't be afraid to give a little bit of pressure in the darkest areas. It'll smooth it all out. It'll blend it. It'll darken it. Still want to add a little bit of magenta to this, especially to these little areas where it's kind of warm and brown. Like I say, you're never going to start looking at things the same. You're going to see colors and all sorts of things. Hopefully. At least if you take it to heart. So as I layer in that purple, I'm just pressing pretty hard in some of those areas. I could easily do purple or blue or whatever color you feel like. As long as the values are correct, it's going to be okay. A couple colors left and we'll have it. This is just a sketch, but again, this is practice, learning to see colors. You take this as far as you want it to go. There's no pressure. You don't have to get it perfect. You have to be happy with it. Whatever you're getting out of it, you got to be happy. That's ultimately it. I'm doing this because somehow I want to make my world a little bit better. I'm not exactly sure how to do that. So I started this YouTube channel thinking that maybe somewhere along the way I can make somebody's life a little nicer, a little brighter, a little happier. I like this magenta into it. Just that warmth of it, a little bit of pink, just nice. And the other thing I want is a little bit of light blue in there, just a little bit. Where else would you put this magenta? A little in his chest, someplace where the skin is a little closer to the surface. Last, I'm going to just add a little bit of this blue to some of these little areas up in here. A little bit of blue is going to make it look kind of gray, but shadowy. You can go over the top of any of that with that blue. Just a kaleidoscope of color. It's kind of refreshing, kind of nice. Hopefully, drawing with me today has brought you a little bit of happiness, a little joy, a little bit of escape, I guess, a little bit. Let's call it escape. From the cares of the world, which there are many. I do understand that. That's why I think art is so important. It helps us not only to express ourselves, to do something that is beautiful, and to maybe get in contact with the ultimate creator. Michelangelo said that art was one of those things that got you closer to God, because he is the ultimate creator. Yeah, whether you believe that or not, it always brings me a little joy. Hopefully it's done that for you today too. And I hope that you have a lovely day. Keep drawing.